Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ubuntu Touch Q&A, the UBports Foundation show discussing the development of Ubuntu Touch and our community's questions. This is episode 87, streamed live on October 24th, 2020. My name is Dalton, and joining me this week are Florian.
Hello everyone.
And Alfred.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining me this week. Fortnite, that'll do. We've got quite a roundup of news and questions to get to today. And of course, we will be taking questions from live chat, so keep them coming, YouTube. Happy to be here. Let's start out this week talking about the OTA 14 freeze. So it has been about 4 weeks since we released OTA 13, and here we are just about to release OTA 14. We have officially frozen development. If anyone merges anything into a Xenio branch, they will be whipped with a spaghetti noodle that's been boiled. It won't hurt very much, but it's the message. Wow, 6-week cycles are kind of nuts. My personal favorite in this update, audio is rerouting to Bluetooth when you reconnect it again. So if you're playing a podcast and you disconnect from Bluetooth, when you reconnect later, your audio will go back to Bluetooth. That's been missing for a long time. Thank you, Rachanan. I've been missing that so much. There are a couple more devices in the UBports installer now. The Xperia Z4 tablet and Florian's Nexus 6P will be debuting with OTA 14.
Oh yeah, that was 1 year of work and work.
I figure your 6P stuff would make the 5X easier, but I really don't want to port anything.
Guess what?
Like
I'm already on the small ads here in our local area to hunt down a few Nexus 6 and 5Xs, see the prices, and if there is any good bargain here, I probably cannot resist. Can't resist. But let's see.
We have more fixes for Android 9 devices, which was kind of our focus for this cycle. You can actually swipe away apps now. It's not frustrating anymore. Thanks to Nikita and Rachanan for figuring that one out. Cameras are better. Of course, GStreamerland or any camera work, probably Rachanan. And we've got support for external displays on Hardware Composer 2, which is Android 9 devices. You might want to watch the news this week for something interesting in that Android 9 external display space.
What did you say? I couldn't hear it very well. Can you repeat
I've
that
got
last part?
something in my throat. But also in Android 9 device news, something already sort of announced, but Alfred, could you talk a little bit about your Android 9 device?
Sure. So, as you may or may not know, I am working on the Pixel 3a right now. Sarga, it is called. There's also the Pixel 3a XL, which is called Bonito. And what we do have now is it being built on UBports CI. So it's getting its daily builds now. It is now part of the system image server stuff. So you can theoretically, if you feel adventurous, install it using command line tools that you may have to build yourselves right now. But that means that the support will go into the UBports installer very, very soon. So it's only missing one change in the way that you can flash a special partition onto the device. Jan already knows about it. So with the next release, we have everything ready and all the pieces falling into place that aren't required for us to ship an installer image for users out there, not customers, but users. And in the next, also going hand in hand with that is I fixed the thumbnail generation, so of videos. So when you go through the gallery and want to play a video, you now know which video to play. Actually, before that you would have to select it through the file browser. Now it's fixed. I also fixed the fingerprint reader, which is kind of odd because the fingerprint reader, fingerprint reading itself was working already, but what it did was it was emulating the arrow keys of a keyboard when you swiped across it, and that has been fixed now. And
yeah, that's for pulling down the notifications on Android.
exactly, yeah, which does not, work currently with the way that Unity 8 or Lumiri,
Right.
pardon me, work. But it's better than waking up the device by accident. And also, what is very important for this device, because it is an Android 9 device without Halium boot, it's using the Halium system image side of things, but it's not using Halium boot. So what it does is it boots straight into the device from bootloader to the device with only one little shell script, basically setting up the environment. Before
Right.
that,
Usually we would have like an initial RAMFS, which sets up the system before Ubuntu Touch actually boots at all. But here we're
Right.
just booting directly into Ubuntu Touch, which is a little new for us.
Right, exactly. And what I've also done is I have changed the color scheme to orange in the recovery, which is very important for us, you know?
Uh-huh. This is very important.
And going also through the recovery, over-the-air updates also now work due to it being built on UBports CI and integrated into System Image Server. So over-the-air updates, I have tested them. They work. They work just as well as they do on any other device. So yeah, the Pixel 3a is coming along very nicely at this current pace.
I think that the Pixel 3a has another feature, though, maybe something for communicating with things that are very close to your device.
Exactly. You may...
Like a block of paper or a pen?
Well, also the NFC enablement that I might have talked about, or that I did talk about in previous... I did, of course. In previous Q&As. The NFC support also now gained the ability to watch the screen state and turn off the NFC adapter when the screen is off. So you don't accidentally communicate with any other device nearby or in this and at a close range. And you also save battery, so that's very important. Also, the system settings integration is now coming along. I've talked with Joanne about possible ways to improve the system settings part of it, like maybe adding some way of detecting or doing a test. Like, do you know in GNOME settings, when you scroll through, when you have this trackpad settings test site where you can test your scrolling, maybe doing something similar to that, just by putting some NFC device nearby and detecting it. I'm still open to suggestions here, just so that the page doesn't look too blank. You know, it's currently having a switch, but it would be nice to have even more things on the page. So yeah, just get in touch with me if you have any input on that, and let's see what we can do.
Well, sometimes less is more, but what can people expect to do with the NFC support in Ubuntu Touch?
Well, currently they can expect to use NFC tags that are using open protocols or following the NFC forum standards, which almost broke my neck because I figured that the NFC tag that I was using or testing it with was actually using a proprietary protocol. So currently it's only communicating to a tag, so reading or writing to it. What it will come in the future, though, because I've talked with the upstream developer about it, might also be device-to-device communication. So you might be able to implement device-to-device communication via NFC using it, and yeah, that already sounds like a pretty good thing to have on a mobile phone.
You know, when people can be together again and be close enough to touch their phones together.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And also for developers, it is going to be using a Qt NFC. So I have noticed that, or I've been told that certain developers have already included it, in their click packages. So it will work when you run it on a device that is capable of using NFC.
Cool. All right. That sounds awesome. Can't wait to see that. I might have to pick myself up one of those Pixel 3As. Florian, stop highlighting random messages.
I only highlight the most important ones.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit this week about some shuffling of maintainers in our core apps. So recently, Johannes has stepped down from maintaining our calendar app, which means that a bunch of apps are up for adoption, including the calendar, camera, clock, media player, music, and printing apps. The printing app currently isn't shipped on the Rootafast, but it could be. None of these apps currently have an official maintainer, so if you're submitting pull requests or things to them, it'll be a little bit slower, but a great way to get involved with Ubuntu Touch, especially since most of these apps are built with clickable and are really easy to get into, would be to, well, try out some of these apps, see if there's something that you don't like, submit some pull requests to it. After we will notice, and once you start getting into the motions of being able to submit pull requests, having that workflow down, we can help you with how to release the apps, and you could become the official maintainer. So if you've ever tried out the calendar, camera, clock, music player, media player, or the printing app somehow, you've tried out the printing app, and you thought, wow, I really hate this part of it. Now's a great time to maybe fix that up, see if you can get it so that you don't hate it. Become a maintainer of one of these apps. Get your say in how it works. However, I would like to thank David Farkas for stepping up to maintain the Notes app, and Lionel DeBuff, who's maintaining the dialer and messaging apps. OTA 14 has a lot of fixes from Lionel regarding the dialer, messaging, and contacts app. Again, I mean, OTA 13 was 25% him, so he was on his way to it this time for OTA 14. While I'm on my train of talking about things that were contributed to things I like, the documentation has gotten some pretty significant updates pretty recently by Ari, who has improved the porting guide for Halium 7.1 and made the introduction sections make a little bit more sense. So if you're trying to get into porting a device with Android 7, well, it's a great time to check out the documentation over at docs.ubports.com. There's also links to Halium 9.0 information, which is, of course, better than nothing, and we're hoping to get that expanded into more information actually in the documentation soon. That'll be really nice. Just me geeking out about the Sphinx community, I found a plugin called Readeraf, spelled like giraffe, Readeraf, and it lets you redirect pages from one place to another, and that doesn't sound very cool, but inside of Sphinx, it's really cool. And it'll do transition links. It'll check to see if you've deleted a page and tell you, hey, you need to redirect this so people don't get lost. And I really like it. Alfred, what? Something wrong?
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. I will go through all the remaining 45 minutes, of course.
Chat's telling you to stay strong.
No, I'm not sleepy.
And now I've got that song stuck in my head. Florian, would you like to talk a little bit about your pet app this week?
Yeah, sure. So there's one thing, as all of you might know, I hope of the most ones know already, Teleports is in my hands, and the maintainer is not going to change. For the moment, it's still me and a few other nice people that are trying to push it forward, and we are preparing also a next update. just want to highlight 2 things or maybe 3 things. One thing is that finally voice note recording is now available. So basically you have a small microphone. You can click and hold the microphone. It will record whatever you want to say. If you release it, it will be instantly sent. So it's a really low access to recording in a voice note. You can do it quickly. You can without looking at the device. Maybe if you practice a little bit, I'm not mentioning any use cases of that because that's mostly dangerous, probably, like in a car. No, don't do this in a car. You can also, if you change your mind and don't want to send it, you just keep it pressed, swipe it to the left. It's like in the old app. So the old Telegram app had this feature at the very end. It was working more or less okay-ish, but now we just ported that over to Teleports. The second thing is that we are finally resolving the thing that you can click on URLs in the browser or in any other place where you got a URL for a public chat or for a group, and you can join this now in Teleport. So you could go to the browser, find some link to a Telegram group, click it. It will be t.me something, and that will be redirected to the Teleports app directly. So the system knows that these URLs are handled by Teleports, and Teleports knows when they are incoming what to do with it. Yeah. That's a great thing. It's maybe not used that often, but it was quite a complicated feature because we needed to see how the URL handler works and finally get around some twists and twinkles here. And the third thing is that hopefully we'll land, it's still a little bit unclear, contacts import, but at least we have a working branch where you can import contacts from the address book with your phone number and add them to your local list of contacts in Teleports. Because they don't share the same contact list, of course. And then you will be able to add people by their phone numbers directly without asking them for adding you or whatever, using a desktop client or so. So that gives a little bit more mobility for that workflow. Yeah, that's for Teleports. It's not clear if when the release will be, so I don't say anything here. My lips are sealed, but it's soonish, more or less.
TM.
Soonish TM, yeah. The other cool thing is that I can demonstrate like Marius always does. He just holds a phone into the camera and you can see nothing and he takes away again. So now you have seen the feature. I try to do it a little bit more slowly. Yeah. So what we actually have, we have this wonderful sensor status app, and you all know this thingy. So it basically displays here accelerometer data. The thing is that none of the other sensors are, so we have accelerometer, the rotation is connected, proximity, basically those things, and ambient light. Yeah. We played a little bit around with some stale branches from canonical times. So we could also add actually magnetometer. Yes, you can see it here, and gyroscope. So we have a working gyroscope here. Come on, focus. And the thing with that is you see a lot of numbers that make no sense. First of all, of course, gyroscope could be used in an app now. Yeah, it's just a QML component that you need to add, and you got the values of the sensor. The magnetometer is not so handy or practical because it's a raw value of the magnetic field of the Earth. What you want to have actually is a compass, right? So some people start asking why we don't have a compass in Ubuntu Touch. And one of the reasons is, despite you need the sensor, you also need to calculate it out of the magnetic values, because a compass is a calculated sensor in most of the mobile devices. So you don't have a little bit of hardware that's called a sensor, it's called a compass. You need to actually calculate the compass value from the sensors. And you actually do this by combining two sensors, which is the magnetometer and the accelerometer. And without going into too much depth, I'm trying this now. And here is compass. And let's focus a bit. And you can see it presents bullshit value. So basically that is not working at all. Yeah, the reason for that is that I don't know what's wrong. I took actually a little bit of advice from Mare and Sailfish guys from the sensor framework, took out the code, ported it over. It doesn't work. We all know that we want to actually move to the sensor framework of Mare and Sailfish, but it's still a little bit in the future. So I wanted to take an easy win here and just say, okay, we have the two sensors enabled. We just put them together in the calculated sensor. It works. Well, it doesn't. Still, we also have enabled additional thing, like there is barometric pressure, which is actually not on the Fairphone, but on some other devices that already works. So you could use your phone as a kind of small weather station. Unfortunately, the temperature is also not working. It's strange, but we are getting into experimenting a little bit with those things. So like Alfred is doing NFC. There was already fingerprint work for Android 9. We are now on the sensor level. I think we are getting more and more hardware enabled that actually waits to be enabled for a long time. And that's a good thing. So yeah, That's it. From the lab, how to make a compass from a sensor that's not a compass. Oh yeah.
It presents values that don't make sense.
Yes. Basically, I have one thing to say. If it's lying flat on the table, the values are okay-ish, but they're still not correct. So it's a problem also that you hold it like that. If you go like this, then the compensation for the rotation doesn't need to be so high, and I think then it's okay. Yeah.
So does it work any better if you calibrate it with the special calibration motion? I am not joking.
Oh, no, I don't know about this motion. Please teach me. I will try later.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, now that we've talked about the lab, why don't we talk about the people who make the lab possible? That is, our sponsors. Thank you to our sponsors who are making it possible for us to make Ubuntu Touch, including our platinum level sponsors, Smooth, Vala, Pine64, and Private Internet Access. You can find out more about our sponsors over at ubports.com/sponsors, or you can join our community sponsors like some people, Dan Trevino, Robin Hood, Kurt Vaughn, Laszlo Thomas, Darren Olson, James H. Jackson Jr., Max Fielder, A. Thiel, Michael Dale Meyer, Casey Lambie, George Toma, Renan Mirkalev, Will Atwood, and Scott Marley. If you'd like me to mispronounce your name as well, you can head over to patreon.com/UBports and pick the community sponsor level there. Or other options, which generally have lower fees for us, can be found over at ubports.com/donate. We really appreciate everyone who heads over there to help us continue making Ubuntu Touch for you and continue paying back the technical debt on the whole thing. And generally make a mobile OS that we enjoy, and we hope you do as well. Why don't we take some questions this week? So we take these questions from our forum over at forums.ubports.com. It's an excellent place to head over to chat with the community, or roughly on Monday before the show, we'll open up the questions thread and you can ask your questions of us. And you get into the show first, unless you have a lot of questions, and sometimes we skip over some. Apologies. Let's start out this week, Alfred, with Ubuntu Touch.
The question is, usually recent mobile phones don't run Ubuntu Touch because it takes time to port the software onto them. So I'm surprised that the port of the OnePlus 6T was so quick. What happened there? Has anyone tested conversions on this beast of 8 gigabytes of RAM? This could be an ideal device for a desktop computer.
Right. So I'll take the ending part first because Alfred can answer the beginning part better. I don't think the OnePlus 6T has an external display adapter, so you wouldn't be able to use it with an external display and, make a convergent desktop experience. But 8 gigs of RAM does sound pretty neat. You can hold a lot of Chrome tabs in RAM. Alfred, do you want to talk a little bit more about how a port to a new device like that can be so quick?
Sure. So due to the fact that the community, the Halium community especially, has worked towards making the generic system image work so well, we have been able to, and not only that, but people came over from the XDA side to Halium and tried to find out what to do and how to make a system, a GNU/Linux system work like Ubuntu Touch work on Android hardware like Irfan, for example. And basically, due to the fact that we have so much shared work that is not duplicating other people's work by itself, we have been able to move very quickly on that front.
Yeah, so devices that shipped compatible with, Android 9.0 GSIs can be done pretty quickly with some kernel tweaks and then fixing the device-specific bugs after that. But at least it'll boot pretty quick.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, think about it. We had, I believe it was March or April or something like that, when we had the first initial builds running of Ubuntu Touch on a multitude of devices. And I was surprised back then already. And now we got to the point where things are getting more stable. Camera recording works. Sensors work pretty well. It's getting real quick compared to Halium 7.1, because we have so many things that we worked on Halium 7.1 also benefited the work for Android 9, because we basically made changes to the rootfs and or we made small changes and adapted components, like, for example, the GStreamer droid, which we are not using right now, but we used before. It's just 64-bit devices don't work with it right now, so we had to change back to the old version. But really, Nikita especially has done an amazing job of making this work so well.
Yeah, it's been
so the community has done a very good job at this. So really, everybody involved, pat yourself on the shoulders. You deserve it.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing how many devices are coming up, including the one that you should watch the news for this week. Florian.
Well, actually, next question.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add that the installer has now a list of devices that's actually scrolling, because we have already so many. And Jan was so proud that this list is finally scrolling, and it's not just a boring small drop down with a small number of devices. Yeah, just saying. Good. Let's go to the next one. And that is from Steve. Are there any plans to bring category-based search to the search bar in the app drawer? With the ability to initiate an internet search directly from the app drawer search bar would be a nice feature that might make sense to prioritize for OTF 15. So here we are with a question that I also had on my mind.
Yeah,
well, point in time.
The app drawer can surface category-based information, as it can also surface like app name-based information. The problem is we removed a lot of the code that was needed for that a long time ago, since it was so unstable. So yeah, I mean, improving the app drawer was something that we said we need to do since we went to the app drawer. It was kind of this blank slate where things could happen, right? And that's what why we were so happy to have it, because it's much more flexible in a lot of ways than the old scopes could have been, simply because they were just too complex. Talking about just prioritizing it for OTA 15, I think there are other things that we need to do that are a little bit higher priority. But certainly, if someone in the community, became the initiator for it, got the designs, or re-implemented the old designs from Canonical to do this kind of thing, by all means, improvement is improvement here. Us for paid developers or Alfred probably won't be doing it in the next update.
I also have a little point to make there because of the internet search. Remember that Canonical got a lot of issues from the community because they add something like that in the dash. So we would have to do it in a special way, or
it would need to be like an Actions API kind of thing where you type it in and it offers search this on Bloogle or whatever.
Right.
Kind of more like the iPhone can do. Interesting. Steve's other question.
Yeah.
While we got really
Okay, sorry.
nice.
Go on, Dalton.
While
It's
we
okay.
While we got really nice updates with the unified design style to the splash screens to most of the core apps in OTA 13, it seems that the Morph, Camera, and File Manager apps are still using old splash images. Are there plans to have these new ones for these 3 core apps in OTA 14? Well, there was all these new splash screens look really nice, and they are neutral between different versions, or whether you're using a light or dark theme, which is really nice. But for the Morph browser one, it's not only a new icon, or not only a new splash screen, but a new icon to go with it, and that caused some late discussion in the cycle. And I basically said, okay, we can't discuss this right now. We can't be distracted by this. We need to go. So we're going to discuss that more for OTA 15. But yes, there is a PR for Morph browser. I don't know about Camera or File Manager right now. I apologize. I didn't check that before we went live.
I can even show you right now. So it has a new splash.
Oh, Camera
screen.
has it. Right. Yeah. That happened. The camera already has it. I'm going crazy, I tell you. Oh, the camera on Android 9 devices has it. It hasn't been released yet.
Shh, don't tell.
Right. Man, there's a lot going on. I'm starting to lose my place. Alfred, you should take the next one.
Shuko asks, I asked this before, but it would be better to know the details behind this. Is it possible to theme Lomiri yet, like transparency, icon packs, fonts, moving app bar to the left, the app bar from the left to the right or bottom? Question mark.
No, not currently. As for plans for that, all of those things are difficult. I mean, changing transparency of the app drawer and stuff wouldn't be that bad, but having transparency on the app drawer is how it was originally designed, and boy, it was awful. It was really hard to read. Whenever we're talking about customization for Ubuntu Touch, it's not like this thing where some people like to characterize it that we're no customization. Customization is always bad. But in cases where it does things like improve accessibility for differently able users, or just makes it easier for people to do a task, it's a good thing. The problem is that customizability must also be testable. So we're putting together a lot of different components here. If they can all change the way they behave, we need to test each different way those components can behave when they're put together. That increases the testing load a lot. So whenever we're talking about adding customization features, it also means adding, a lot more tests. Like if you say the app drawer can be on the left or the right side, well, you're doubling the tests. So.
And also when we do something like, or if we ever do something like theming, we should take a look at what GNOME did, because GNOME, for example, it took them a while to stabilize the interface for creating a custom theme. And we do not want to release something and then all the themes break and all the users are angry at us for not supporting their themes anymore. So that's surely not something that we would like in the long run.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, it makes more sense if you ask specifically what you're looking for and why you're looking for it, because then we can give better answers. Because like if we just talk about this big customization, it gets a little bit more difficult. It's like, are you talking about KDE levels of you can change literally anything you want, but you get to keep the pieces of it if it breaks? Or are we talking things like I made the background a little bit more transparent? It changes the answer a bit. Florian, can you read Auri88's first question?
Sure. UT is being ported to more and more devices. Yeah, some of which are open source and cheap. So one of the main problems we have in the first release OTA for the user finding a compatible device seems to be largely solved. Yeah, you could say that to a certain point of... what do you think are UT's Achilles heels that need further work? I would say maybe every one of us picks one and a small justification maybe, or you have prepared more? Okay. I mean, as I'm now working on a few of these experiments with sensors and stuff and hardware, I would say we need to further enable the hardware, that you have a device which has inbuilt some functionality and you want to use it in UT. And it's the same with the NFC, with the fingerprint reader, supporting more camera modes. There was something about flash modes that could be extended. There's a lot still to go. Yeah. Better Bluetooth support, that's also something that many people would like to see. So for me, it's all around hardware features in the device being properly connected to some part of software.
More vertical integration, kind of, you mean?
Yeah, I'm a vertical guy. I'm sorry for that. I'm really try to go first to the deepest possible point of something and then go into the wide field of alternatives.
Well, ARM is the right platform for you, for sure. There's nothing but vertical integrators here, but yeah, that's interesting. Alfred?
Well, I personally would like to see system, or not a concept of making it easy for app developers, for example, to create background services for their app. I have worked on something like that in the past, but I really would like to see something like that come into Ubuntu Touch, because for example, working on the Ghost Cloud Nextcloud client that I wrote, I really would like to have some functionality of shooting a photo. Ghost Cloud notices that there is a new photo and automatically uploads it to the Nextcloud instance, doing an instant photo backup, for example. Things like that would be really handy in many areas. And that's one of the few things that I miss while using Ubuntu Touch currently.
Yeah, being able to have things in the background. I think that's where... Actually, yeah, that does lead... Yeah, you gave me one. Thank you. I say the exact opposite. We need to figure out how to do web push better, or any type of push, so that we can wake the device up when the server says there's something to do.
Right.
I mean, we have Ubuntu push now, but no one's integrating it. Having better, well, both web push for the browser, which is iffy because the browser running in the background is going to be a problem. But also just more standard push support for app developers now, because Ubuntu push is weird. I mean, it's fine, but it's not the standard anymore. Of course, Firebase is mainly the standard, or Apple push, but web push is also up there. I think that being able to make Ubuntu push more like web push, which is able to be hosted on your own infrastructure, it's something that developers already understand. At least from my talks with developers who use web push, might be better than continuing with Ubuntu push. And indeed, deeper integration of sync and push technologies can make things like what you said, Alfred, more possible, where your Nextcloud server says to your device, hey, there's an updated file. This is actually something that there were designs for, but it just never came to fruition. Your Nextcloud server says, hey, there's a new file that you should update. Pushes that down to your device. Your device wakes up. The push helper tells the download manager, there's a new file. I want you to download it for me. The download manager then waits until you're back on Wi-Fi, if you've set it that way, or just on mobile data, if you've set it that way. Downloads it for you. And next time your app runs, the file is waiting for you. I think that's a pretty cool design, but, yeah, so I think that we need a more standard push technology that can enable better battery saving applications and better illusion of constant connectivity applications without draining battery life. I think RE88 had his own suggestion, though he said it in different words. Well, two different questions. His first was the app number on our store is still very small, less than 1,200 applications, and half of them are only web apps, and we don't know how many of them still work. What do you think is needed, and what have you come up with to attract more app developers? And then, is there interest and are there plans to extend the number of programming languages toolkits that are supported in Ubuntu Touch? I think it's interesting because I almost think that these two questions directly contradict each other. If you look at any big platform right now, it's just using one programming language and toolkit. It's like between the way that open source developers are opinionated about what they want and what they like, which toolkit and language they like, or do people just want a single framework that they go to and you know that you make all your apps in that and they're going to work and you can package them? And I think that's where our strength lies, not in having more support, more horizontal support, but in having this one vertical supported way to make apps. Of course, it's partially incompatible with how other Linux distributions are doing things today, which leads into his third question. Well, fourth question. Other Linux operating systems for the smartphone will have their own software in stores with their own package managers. Do you think it's possible to avoid fragmentation? No, it's not.
Exactly. That's the right simple answer. No, it's just not possible.
Right.
You know, every vendor, every operating system manufacturer here is going to have their own opinions on what the right way to make applications is. And ours is, you package things as click packages, which hopefully we can transition to something else later, for not because necessarily it'll be a better experience for developers. We want to keep at least the same experience for developers, if anything, but so that we can better maintain it would be our reason for changing. Because click packages are weird, but they work, and they work pretty well. That's kind of a similar story with other custom things that we have that other distributions don't.
I mean, there is also something. It's not always. We should not always just think about the packaging and the store technology, because this is something that could be transparent or agnostic to what's
also
inside.
the frameworks.
The problem is really the framework, and we are focused so much on the Qt QML and other stuff that we have. And if another vendor would like to support our apps on their phones, they would have to import all those libraries on top of their thing. So if you have GNOME plus Qt plus something else, you end up with 3 times the space in your root file system for all the libraries, and some of them might even fight for versions. So you will be in dependency hell in a matter of seconds. So it's really like these things are not exchangeable that much between different flavors and operating systems. They need to be recompiled. So is it then again on the app makers, on the developers of apps, to put their app in all of the stores? And I'm afraid at the moment the answer is yes. So you would have to develop something for PureOS, for UT, for Plasma Mobile as well. Well, that's how it is at the moment. If you really want to use all the features like integrate with push, integrate with sensors, integrate with all the additional APIs besides the one that you would have from a normal desktop app, and basically a desktop app integrates with, I would say, network, sound, GPU, storage, something like that. But that's not that there is so much more on a mobile device that you can use that you need additional complexity for that. And that will be very operating system specific. And that's the point. And there's a question in live chat, would it be extremely time consuming, but what about app images tailored to mobile? Yes, it is extremely time consuming, because it's not about the app image format. It's about what does the executable need to be executed? And that will not be on board of all of the mobile operating systems unless they would find a standard what libraries to ship in which versions.
Right. But I mean, that's where Flatpaks and snaps and app images kind of fix things, but also don't, because every vendor right now is making a lot of different software, be it us using a phono versus everyone else. Well, all of the GNOME people using Modem Manager, or us having Ubuntu push and everyone else
has another
not.
push, yeah. And also the exchange between apps. If you think about data exchange, we have Content Hub, which is very tied down to exchanging only files via a kind of notary thing that you putting things in a temporary place and the other apps gets it from there, and there's no direct interaction between apps. Yeah? We have app armor policies in place. We have a lot of framework that is really not transportable across to another thing with easy steps. So it's not about the packaging, not about the direct dependencies of the executable. It's also about where does it integrate to. And not to speak of our transition that we need to go for Wayland, Mir, and all the complexity around our display stack. Yeah.
Right. So it's not only about, the app. It's not only about the applications running. It's about how the user will experience them. And, we could all bring our stores together, but the user experience of all the different apps would just be so weird and broken between each other.
And even if it tried to make one unified mobile app store, it would still mean that someone is not happy with the result and would make his own.
And would make their own. So no, we really can't avoid fragmentation in this space, unfortunately. And it's going to be a lot of duplicated effort, but that's what happens when people can't agree on how to make something perfect.
Right.
Well, when people don't agree what perfect is. Yeah. It's an interesting question. I would recommend heading back to the end of our last Q&A when we talked way too long on another topic in a similar vein. It was a good one. I like doing it. Jan told us that we were beating a dead horse by the end, so I think we should stop now too. Let's see. Anyone else see any questions that you want to take?
I would briefly talk about the third question of Ori, what is necessary to attract more app developers, because we have a very small number of apps and half of them are web apps. Yeah, that's basically true. I think app developers are kind of interested in really feature-rich phones that are snappy with all the things like graphical stack, also with various gimmicks from the hardware that you can have as inputs. And I don't know, for example, a gyroscope is necessary for certain type of games, and we haven't connected it yet. It was there basically, but hidden behind a lack of, So in the end, I think app developers, they want to have something that is really a cool, fast phone where you can see that the app is really behaving well. But also they are not interested in too much hacking on a low level. So they want to have an IDE basically where they can draw their windows, arrange the elements of the UI toolkit. They can a little bit make mockups that are working to see how it goes. Because from what I know from my daily business as software developer, if you combine the role of a UI designer or UX designer with a developer that codes, it's about that you have to split your, let's say, your time between both of these things. And none of coding or developing UX and designing should take up all the time. So sometimes for us, it's for our apps, it's really hard if you come from that point of view. You have to set up a lot of tooling for a Qt Creator, for compiling everything, for getting these pieces together with scripts. And then on the other hand, you have on the Android world, you just have the Android SDK with a fully integrated IDE that does a lot of things already for you. And even me on teleports, I having a really hard time to try out new designs without going to the device. And that's really blocking and very time consuming and also frustrating if you cannot get your layout right and you have to make 7 or 8 rounds of compiling until you see what is wrong. And I would like to have something in Qt Creator that I can really design everything up to the point where I connected with the code. And
something
that's
like
very
Qt
frustrating
Designer,
for
just better.
I don't know what's the point, but we need to somehow integrate our UI toolkit to the desktop developers so that they can use it on a normal PC for developing a better UX, in my opinion. Yeah, that would allow a lot of people that don't want to code so much and spend time with fiddling around why it doesn't work to get an app to a prototype stage quicker. Yeah.
Interesting. Mintfin also suggested an IDE, except he suggested that it would allow the developer to export the app from multiple platforms. Yeah, we just did kind of talk about why that would be difficult at best, and it's kind of the Electron problem. If you make an app for everywhere, it doesn't
The
feel
features are
great
limited,
anywhere. So,
But yeah.
Interesting questions, Aurelio. Thank you very much this week. Can't wait for next time.
True.
One more going a little deeply or technical before we go. What the heck was that sentence? Fuse Team asks, what's the plan with Mir? Will we be backporting or upgrading or both? This comes from a recent change in the Mir 2.0 source tree, enabling support for the Raspberry Pi 4, which is not in the Mir 1.x tree. So we talked to the Mir developers about it, and we basically found that it's going to be nearly impossible to backport that fix. It requires changes to Mir graphics that you don't want to do in a non-API breaking release. So we're going to need to move to the newer Mir. But luckily, they have proposed that we can possibly move some more stuff from QtMir, which is required for QtMir and therefore Unity 8 to function and be able to manage Windows itself. We could move some of that into Mir itself. It'll be basically deprecated on launch, so as soon as it gets in, it'll be marked as deprecated, but that might be what we do to make it easier for us to upgrade to Mir 2, which would bring with it support for that Raspberry Pi and a number of other good fixes. Faster, better, stronger. We can rebuild it. Excuse me.
Sargo.
All right, bring it back. Good work, Alfred. So yeah, I think that'll do it for this time around. What do y'all think?
Yep.
Okay. That was in sync for me. I don't know if it was for the viewers. Good work. So this has been the Ubuntu Touch Q&A episode 87. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. The fun doesn't stop here. You can find us on all sorts of social networks, including Facebook, Twitter, PixelFed, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Instagram. And you can get our news directly in your chat client over on Telegram or Matrix. Links to all of those in the video description. Oh, by the way, did you know that we do this as like a downloadable podcasty thing? Yeah, you can head over to our SoundCloud over at soundcloud.com/UBports and grab the RSS feed from there. Get us in your podcatcher every 2 weeks. Wow, amazing. You can chat with us over on Matrix or Telegram, #UBports and @UBports respectively, or find us on our forum over at forums.ubports.com. Florian, you had something to add?
Yeah, a small administrative thing. This is the last Q&A on the European summertime schedule. So next week, we will switching again to wintertime. So it will be 1 hour earlier for Europe, at least.
Or are we going to change the time to UTC? Oh, no, we're going to have a problem, aren't we? All right, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so next week, 1 hour earlier, please. Everyone, get up.
Okay, we're going to do it an hour earlier. Well, we've decided it live. We're doing it an hour earlier instead of changing our time. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us, and we will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.